Welcome to Stretford Paddock. My name is Joe and that is Ronaldo, and today we are going to be looking in detail exactly how Christian Eriksen has transformed Manchester United's midfield. He's come in, free transfer, no one really expected a lot from him, and he has arguably been the most important part of United so far this season.
Yeah, before I go on to that, I do want to preface this by saying I'm not really short. Joe's just really tall.
Okay.
Well, before I
carry on.
But when it comes to the whole Eriksen and what he's done and the fact that he was free, I think when he came in, was he expected to probably be a little bit of a Bruno Fernandes alternate, not someone that was going to be a definitive starter, maybe a bit of a squad player? We knew all about his quality, we just didn't know whether... We saw what he did for Brentford. I think for Brentford, he ranked highly, ranked in top 5 for a lot of like passing metrics, stats metrics, for his playing 11 games for a Brentford side that isn't known to be the most technical, the most fluent of side in terms of where they play football. They're usually quite more dynamic and a little bit more direct. But he's actually come in and he's been the Frankie de Jong that Ten Hag's actually wanted.
Instead of being the Bruno replacement, he's been the Frankie de Jong alternative, hasn't he? So we've got some screenshots here of things he's been doing for Manchester United in these games. The crucial things that... Because it's almost like he's gone from being an alternative to Bruno to a player that we only have one of now. We only have one player that is capable of playing the ball out from deep, and that is Christian Eriksen.
It wasn't the most perfect start when it came to where he's seemingly positioned. In the past few weeks, he's been better as being a little bit more advanced, that left side of the midfield pivot, which is meant to be the one that's a little bit more progressive in Ten Hag's system that we saw Frankie de Jong play that, we saw Ryan Gravenberch play that last season, whereas the right side is meant to be the McTominay, the Edson Alvarez, the one that's a little bit more of a destroyer, a little bit more deeper. But in the Brighton game and in the Brentford game, he actually played Eriksen in deeper than McTominay in both games. And I feel like it was a little bit of an imbalance there. You might get the benefit of him being able to get on the ball and turn and pass. But in terms of out of possession, it looks a little bit more vulnerable. And it just didn't seem to link together very well. And obviously McTominay looked a little bit like a fish out of water.
McTominay's there, and Eriksen's the one who's dropping into the box to defend.
You'd rather this be switched. You'd rather this be switched. And there were several instances in this game where it was like that in terms of the positions. So we've got basically the screenshot here of when Jensen's actually scored the goal when he was dispossessed, where Eriksen was the deepest midfielder. He played as a DM in this game. And we saw how uncomfortable it was. We got overrun. He wasn't up to it defensively because that's not naturally his game. He just didn't seem to have the physicality to cope with it. But what's changed from then is, against Brighton, he was a little bit too deep, so he couldn't influence the game as much as he has been in recent weeks. It was the same in Brentford when he was played a little bit too deep as a defensive midfielder. I don't think he can play that in the Premier League, especially in this system. But when we played against Liverpool, Leicester, and against Arsenal, when he was a little bit further forward on that left, where we have seen the likes of Ryan Gravenberch and Frankie de Jong play for Ajax in the past, he's been much more natural there, and he's been pivotal to a lot of the goals that we've scored. Like this is more ideal. This is the type of areas that you want to see Eriksen in.
So this is against Leicester.
This is Leicester when he scored it, just whipped past the post, where he's received the ball in an advanced area in the left side channel, which is allowed to be the midfield. That's a little bit more progressive. And McTominay, which is out of shot, was a little bit deeper, where they basically flipped round. Whereas in the first game, McTominay was the one that was more advanced and Eriksen was a little bit deeper. And Ten Hag's flipped that round, and it's made a massive difference because they're in more natural positions. Because when you've got a player like Eriksen, he's better on the ball, he's more creative, he's both-footed in terms of his technicality, and I think he allows or takes the pressure off McTominay in terms of his ball playing. McTominay can focus on what he generally does best, which is breaking up play and being a bit of a physical nuisance in that sense. And I think he feels a little bit more confident when he's playing with Eriksen, because I think when he plays with Fred, I think both of them, because they both do similar things, they both seem to have the same weaknesses as well. I think there's not that sense of belief and confidence in each other, and confidence is important in football.
And I think with Eriksen as well, because he's even if he's playing slightly further forward than McTominay, he's not playing much further like Bruno is. Whereas when it's Fred and McTominay, one of them has to break the line and get the ball to Bruno. And neither of them are really capable of it. We saw, I know we've got a graphic coming up in a little bit about, here this was one of the goals against Arsenal. But you can see here, breaking the lines, and I think this was just before was it the second goal?
This led to the goal, Rashford's first goal.
Yeah, exactly. So this is just for the second goal. He did it for the first goal as well, where I don't trust McTominay or Fred to consistently make that pass.
First time.
Where you've got one man coming through here, you've got one man coming close to him, and he's played that first time as well, like you just mentioned.
No, exactly. He's basically played that pass, and it's kind of broke the lines. It wasn't the first time he did it. He did it early on in the game as well, when he played that line-breaking pass to Bruno as well. And what you're seeing is, Bruno's always someone that is quite clever with his movement anyway when he gets behind the lines. But in the past, he's been a little bit more, not headless chicken, but he's going into areas to receive the ball where he can't be as dangerous because he doesn't have that belief in McTominay or in Fred that they can actually find him. I think with Eriksen, you're finding Bruno getting on the ball in more dangerous areas when he is behind there because he knows. Because as an attacking player, you're going to make better movements, you're going to take up better positions because you're going to be more confident you can be found when you've got a player like Eriksen. I don't think players like that in terms of when McTominay and Fred were playing there. I don't think the forwards had that in terms of their belief. Because I think the same when Rashford had a massive problem in the past few seasons of being always offside. I know United fans have seen that. And sometimes we're a little bit stagnant in terms of our movement up front, and I think that's because they don't have that belief that McTominay and Fred were able to find him. I think the movement's been better because when you see Eriksen turn and he picks his head up, you feel like he can find me, and then you make those movements.
And also the offside thing as well is some of that is Marcus Rashford going too early.
Some of that's been too late.
But other it is the ball's been played too late. Yeah. If I get the ball's coming to me and Marcus sees the ball is coming to me as a midfielder, and if I have to take a touch, look up and then pass it, he's offside. Eriksen is playing that same ball first time. Bruno is playing the same ball, and like you said, because he now trusts the ball that he can be found in more advanced positions, he can now play those passes first time because the gap between Bruno and the strikers is shorter because he can stay further forward. It has such a knock-on effect on the whole midfield and attack. Like we've been saying for so many years, having someone that can link up play from deep, which is what he wanted De Jong to do. Eriksen is almost like, it's like a sort of a bargain De Jong, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
But he's been doing it for longer.
So this is it. This is the one where Eriksen does find himself a little bit deeper. So I've seen that he do occasionally, in terms of out of possession, sometimes he does receive the ball a little bit deeper because he's able to progress it. Sometimes they do stagger, but generally in the recent weeks, Eriksen's been the more advanced of the midfielders and McTominay's been a little bit deeper. But how many times have we seen a midfielder in the past few years for United able to play that pass there?
Yeah, and it just goes to
Fernandes, Bruno.
Typically, you'd see someone turning either back to the defender, back to the goalkeeper, or trying to switch it to Wan-Bissaka.
Yeah.
Generally, this pass here isn't usually attempted. It feels as though that McTominay and Fred sort of see it, but they don't trust themselves, and then when they do go for it, they've hesitated. There's so much of football is like you said, it's about being comfortable and being confident. That McTominay can make that pass. Look, there's no Arsenal players in this little channel here. Yeah. But if he doesn't trust himself to do it, or if Fred's already given one to their striker this game, he's not going to try that.
Exactly.
And the thing with Eriksen is because he can do it so consistently, he will trust himself every single time to attempt that pass, and almost every time he's capable of doing it.
Exactly, and you reap benefits. So we've seen the stats from him in the actual game against Arsenal. He had the most touch of any United player, the most passes completed, the most chances created. Covered 11.2 kilometres, and the most interesting thing about Eriksen, what was made about his medical history and whatever, is that he's actually covered the most distance of any United player this season.
Yeah.
He doesn't necessarily always look like he's going anywhere quickly, but he does actually cover the distance. But as I was saying, Bruno finds himself in these pockets all the time. Now he's got a player that can actually find him. And there's a reason why Ten Hag was so desperate to get De Jong, because he knew that we didn't have a ball progressor in the team. And interestingly, probably the best midfielder in terms of doing that was a Pogba. He was quite unreliable, and usually
likes to take too long on the ball.
Takes long the ball and kind of plays his own way in terms of within a system. And then you've also got Matic, who was old legs, but he probably was better on the ball than Fred and McTominay. But even he didn't play these kind of passes. And that's the reason Ten Hag was so desperate to find one, because he knew that McTominay and Fred together weren't of the quality required on the ball to play his way, or make United actually bridge the gap in terms of midfield pivots with the others.
Do you see those things in training as well that they were doing in pre-season at the start of the season, where there'd be a line of 4 players in a row, and it would be, I face you, you pass the ball to me, I turn, pass it to the next person, and they'd pass it down the line of 4 players, just half turn pass, and whoever could get the ball in the net at the other end the quickest would win. And it's pass the ball from defenders to midfield, turn, pass it forward as fast as possible, Bruno, fast as possible, Rashford's in behind, And if you have people who aren't capable of doing that quick turn or a half turn and playing the ball immediately, all of a sudden all the stuff that Ten Hag is trying to work on breaks down. Playing it quick through the lines breaks down. If you can't pass it from deep to up front, then you can't attack the way he wants you to. And like you said, I'm almost worried now that we've seen what it's like. Now we've seen what is expected. Can he play every week? inevitably when he does get an injury or a knock or he needs a rest, do you worry that we're going to struggle to replace him in this team now because there is no one else like him in this team?
No, because in terms of midfield, probably would people say Van der Beek would be that, but he doesn't have. Because the thing is, we can't understate Eriksen in terms of his quality because for years he has been one of the better players probably in Europe or definitely in the Premier League in terms of his technical ability, with his distribution, with his passing, with his ball-footedness and just his general quality. So we are seeing what that can do in terms of that being in your engine room if you want to be a footballing side. And it's also made... I'd like to see how that becomes effective against teams when we need that creativity, when it's a little bit of a lower block. It's working against teams that are a little bit more expansive as well, like Liverpool and Arsenal, because there's more space to hit, which makes your actual passing more important because then you're able to capitalise on the opportunities of when these teams are stretched by breaking in behind them, by playing balls through that with the perfect weight on them, and being clinical, and that's what we have been in these games. Obviously, there's a screenshot here as well on the where he actually makes a third man run. I did say that he covers a lot of distance, but he doesn't generally go anywhere fast. But he, as the attacking outlet two, obviously McTominay deeper again, whereas he's the more advanced of the midfield two in the pivot, identifies the space and then he breaks through as a third man run. Gets further on now. I don't know if he believed himself to score, but I feel like he's just naturally more of an assister.
And also, that is what Marcus Rashford is perfect at.
Yeah.
Like he is one of the I would say one of the best players in the Premier League at his best at being up there with counter attacks. I know that seems like a strange quality to have, but his positioning and his finishing and his pace make him so good in these situations, don't they? So if you've got Christian Eriksen there, bring the ball forward, you know Marcus Rashford's going to be there every single time.
Exactly, but look at Eriksen's so much more comfortable being able to do that because even early on in the game he almost scores back post when he breaks into the box. Against Brentford in the second half when he does flip the system and Eriksen does go further forward, Eriksen almost gets a couple of games in that game, a couple of goals in that game in the second half because he's generally just more comfortable in that area. So I think when he was playing too deep against the likes of Brentford and Brighton, we weren't getting the best of him and he wasn't working in the system, and it's no surprise that when he's actually played in his correct position, United have looked better and we looked better. And I think, will it continue? Probably, because I think the brilliance that he has, it's permanent. It's just about whether he has the legs, especially because of the distance that he's covering over the time. There's probably one more screenshot as well against the Liverpool game, because I have referenced the Liverpool game, is again, you're seeing like the almost diagonal of them, he being the more advanced one in that left side channel. This is where he actually killed Liverpool all game down that left side. And this is where you get the benefits of his quality. Obviously, he receives the ball here. He plays a through ball to Elanga. First time pass, it was perfect weight, as he always does. Crosses it to Sancho. Sancho scores, and we know the rest. And I think that's how you get the most benefit out of him. So what you've actually seen is he was involved in all 3 goals against Arsenal in some way or another. He was involved in one of the Liverpool goals as well. He was involved in the Leicester goal. We find ourselves that most good things that are happening offensively for United at the moment are coming through Eriksen and his ability. And one of the major things that are not tangible, which is probably an intangible, is the fact that you can't actually see. But I think it's the effect he's having on the other players.
Yeah.
I think he's made McTominay more confident. He's got someone he can believes he can pass to.
McTominay's been, I would say, the best he's ever been for Man United in the last 4 games.
And I think it might have a lot to do with him as well. Ten Hag, the fact that Eriksen is a good midfielder to play with because you know you can trust him on the ball. You know his whereabouts. You know his tendencies a little bit where Fred, a little bit more haywire. I think that they both are together and it's not as balanced. And I think we're just reaping the benefits. We didn't get De Jong, but I think we've got someone that is pretty much doing the same job, just a little bit older.
Obviously, we've seen Martinez, Malacia, and these sorts of mentality players almost come in where there's such a difference to Maguire and showing how they're playing the game. But in terms of just tactically and on the pitch, the football inside, not necessarily the mentality side, do you think he's making it as big a difference as anyone?
I think he's been, if you're looking at it, he's been the most influential player so far. And what's crazy about it is that sometimes it's not been completely obvious. I think we've only realised in the last game, but he's actually been doing it gradually during this winning streak. I think we've seen the mentality monsters in terms of how we defended and how we've been more steely with Martinez and Malacia, who just have provided something a little bit more different, a little bit more dynamic, and a little bit more heart than we saw from the likes of Maguire and Luke Shaw. Luke Shaw, who everyone knows my thoughts on, I think he's someone that I don't know if he necessarily loves the game. And I think that kind of shows. And then you've got Malacia, and you see that the difference that hunger does make. But I do think Eriksen is a major, major, major key to how we played better been more incisive when we have been on the ball, especially countering because of his distribution and his ball playing ability. And I think he's had a knock-on effect on the form of McTominay as well. Because McTominay probably feels a little bit less pressure, plays his own game, be a destroyer. And then I think it's led to him actually getting the ball, being more confident, thinking, maybe I can do a couple of things that Eriksen's doing. So I'm actually breaking the lines himself.
Nice, good stuff, great. Well, let us know in the comments whether you think Christian Eriksen has been the most important player for United this season. It is mad, isn't it, how having someone in that midfield that can actually pass, bring the ball forward, stuff that, you know, us watching as, you know, tactically inept fans compared to a coach like Ten Hag, we've been able to see this for a long time. Where a lot of fans have been saying, Fred and McTominay can't pass. We need someone that can pass. You bring someone in that can, and all of a sudden you start getting the best out of people. It almost feels a bit unfair, doesn't it? Like, just get someone who can pass, and now we can pass. But, you know,
it's crazy. It makes us think maybe how low the bar was in terms of the midfield play that we were seeing. So unfortunately.
Hit subscribe to Stretford Paddock if you haven't already. Get your thoughts on this in the comments below. Thank you, Ronaldo, for coming on and explaining what's going on. We're going to be doing more of these as well, aren't we, as the weeks go on? Looking in depth at what is going on at Manchester United, the tactics behind the things we are seeing on the pitch. Hit subscribe, like I said, if you haven't already, and we'll see you in a bit.